You know, when we talk about baseball legends, our minds usually go to the guys with superhuman power, right? The pitchers throwing absolute gas, the hitters launching baseballs into orbit. But today, we're going to talk about a totally different kind of genius. A guy who dominated, not with a cannon for an arm, but with maybe the smartest mind the game has ever seen. Let's get into the story of Greg Maddux.
His nickname, the Professor, and honestly, that says it all. This wasn't a guy who was going to stare you down and intimidate you with raw power. Nope, it was all about intellect, about strategy. He had this surgical approach that just left the best hitters in the world shaking their heads, completely confused.
So that really sets up the big mystery here, doesn't it? How did a pitcher, in an era full of guys throwing smoke, become one of the most dominant players ever without having that overpowering speed? It's a great question. And the answer? Well, it wasn't in his arm. It was all in his head.
All right, so before we break down how he did it, let's just lay out the evidence. Let's talk about the proof of his greatness, which honestly starts with a ridiculous amount of trophies.
4. Just let that sink in. We're talking 4 consecutive Cy Young Awards from 1992 to 1995. And that's the key word right there, consecutive. Look, winning one of those things can define your entire career, but winning 4 in a row, that's not just great, that's a dynasty. That is a level of dominance you almost never see, in any sport. And if you thought that was impressive, get ready for this number, 18. 18 Gold Gloves. Now this is where it gets crazy. That's not just the record for a pitcher, it is the most Gold Gloves won by any player at any position in the entire history of the game. It just goes to show you, he wasn't just a pitching genius, he was a complete master of the sport.
Okay, so the awards speak for themselves, right? The guy was a legend. Which brings us back to that big question, how? How did he do it all? It really boils down to one simple idea, brains over brawn. Maddux was out there playing chess while everyone else was playing checkers.
So let's call it Maddux's method. It was this incredible art of just outthinking the batter. His control was unreal. It was like he had the baseball on a string and could put it anywhere he wanted, whenever he wanted. He would study hitters, find their weaknesses, and just pick them apart relentlessly. He didn't need to throw 100 miles an hour. He'd just paint the black on the edge of the plate and make a great hitter look absolutely foolish.
And you can actually boil his whole genius down to a pretty simple 3-step process. First, he analyzed the batter. I mean, he was like a computer, remembering what a guy did in an at-bat from years earlier. Second, he located the pitch with surgical precision, not just for a strike, but on the exact spot that batter couldn't do anything with it. And that leads to step 3. His goal wasn't always the strikeout. No, he was the master of getting weak contact, those easy pop-ups and lazy ground balls. And that was the secret. It was so efficient, it kept his pitch count super low and let him go deep into every single game.
And that incredible efficiency, that whole method we just talked about, well, that was the engine that powered one of the most consistent careers ever. We're not talking about a guy who was great for a couple of years. This was a sustained 2-decade-long masterclass.
I mean, just take a look at these numbers. 355 career wins. That puts you in some seriously elite company. 4 times he led the league in ERA, 5 times in wins. But the stat on here that just blows my mind, the one that really shows you his endurance, 18. 18 straight seasons pitching over 200 innings. That just doesn't happen. It's almost impossible. It's a true testament to how smart and efficient he was on the mound.
So, when you add it all up, the mountain of awards, that unique method, the insane consistency, what you're left with is a legacy that's absolutely bulletproof, truly immortal.
His journey took him from the Chicago Cubs to those legendary Atlanta Braves teams in the 90s. And everywhere he went, it was just a clinic in excellence. So, was anyone surprised when 2014 rolled around and he got elected to the Hall of Fame on the very first ballot? Of course not. It was a no-brainer, cementing his place among the all-time greats, forever.
And all this leaves us with one last really interesting question to think about. I mean, today's game is all about velocity, right? You've got guys routinely hitting 100 miles per hour. That's over 160 kilometers per hour. So it really makes you wonder, could a pitcher like Greg Maddux, a master of pure intellect and precision instead of raw power, could he still dominate today's hitters? Could the professor still take this new generation to school? That question right there is what really defines his unique and timeless genius.